Postmillennial.
We were just talking about Lucky Charms, and if Michael didn't know any better, he almost slipped into a post-mill mindset. That life couldn't get better. Chloe's birthday, eating Lucky Charms.
That's right.
Living life good. And if you're thinking post-mill, to keep it simple, think hope, think positiveness, hope for gospel victory. Things are getting better
through the
and
church.
better. Specifically through the church, yes.
Right. Prior to Christ's return.
Exactly. We're essentially ushering in the golden age.
Right. With Israel.
With so big picture, central claim, postmillennialism, it teaches that the gospel will gradually transform the world before Christ returns. The kingdom of God is growing. We look at these parables. It's growing through the church. Mm-hmm. And history trends towards a golden age of righteousness, an age of peace, and an age of justice before the final return of Christ.
And gates are defensive things.
There you go.
Right. And the gates of hell will not prevail, which assumes that the church is on the offense.
Wow. Right? We're already coming out swinging. Yeah. Well, do this. Try to put away your preconceived notion.
No.
Like,
that's in favor.
You're in favor.
That's all in favor.
Well, imagine this. We'll close our eyes. Imagine a world where education, where the law, where society perfectly reflects God's justice, where corruption declines, poverty lessens, faithfulness to God is what shapes communities. Postmill says this is not a fantasy, but this is where things are going. It's the trajectory of God's kingdom gradually unfolding before Christ comes. And on some level, all of us would say that. That's where it's going.
Right.
They're just saying this is leading into Christ coming back. So a good question to ask is, where do you see gospel influence in your city, in your school, in your workplace? And when you think of this, hope, purpose, this trajectory, this is like primary to this view. This is what is going through every post-mill's head.
Has a name.
Hey, I love that song.
All right. So should we take it to the next level?
Let's fire up that twangy music.
From the heart of the Low Country in South Carolina,
it's the Take Two podcast, where we take theology to the next level.
Post-mill, let's look at some scriptures that post-mill would think about. So a classic, Matthew 28, 18 through 20, what many would call the Great Commission. Jesus says some very, very famous words, gives the church her marching orders, kind of shows us, what we are to do. So when you get there, would you like to read for us?
I have no idea where he is, but I was on the wrong tab. I was on the opening tab. I was like, where is he at? And I was like, this isn't lined up. Yes, but yes, if I had been on the right tab, I would have been here sooner. And actually, I have one of my things here because I read it. So 18 through 20.
You got it.
And Jesus came up and spoke to them, saying, all authority. And it's like, you want to break right into that Parks and Recreation thing. It's like, what you may have heard is some authority, but what I said is all authority has been given to me in heaven and earth. Go therefore and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age.
Wow. So we're called to go and make disciples. And post-mills will say, they'll at least emphasize that the church is tasked with this, and this transforms the world. Discipleship, kingdom work, this is how the world changes. So you think every act that you teach, every act of mercy, every act of justice, this is what gets us to this golden age. They look at passages like Psalm 110, this messianic psalm quoted extensively, in the New Testament. It's about Christ reigning, executing justice. And they'll say, Christ's kingdom is already being established spiritually, gradually. This is like where it's going. And then, where are you turning to, Michael?
I didn't know did you want to read any of Psalm 110, or do you just want to?
I actually do have it here.
Okay, I didn't know if you wanted to read any of that.
This will sound familiar. The Lord says to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. The Lord sends forth from Zion your mighty scepter. Rule in the midst of your enemies. Your people will offer themselves freely on the day of your power in holy garments. From the womb of the morning, the dew of your youth will be yours. The Lord has sworn and won't change his mind. You are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. The Lord is at your right hand. He will shatter kings on the day of his wrath. He will execute judgment among the nations, filling them with corpses. He will shatter chiefs over the wide earth. He will drink from the brook by the way. Therefore, he will lift up his head. Habakkuk 2:14.
Yeah. For the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea.
And so what they're going to say, if the earth will be filled with that, there's a progression to that. God's kingdom's going to be widespread. Eventually, it's going to be everywhere because how much water covers the sea? A lot, right? The sea is water.
Right,
so it's going to be everywhere. Christians are part of this kingdom expansions. We'll talk about this in historic pre-mill as well, but they'll look at, Psalm 72 talks about righteousness, justice, peace under the king's reign. Isaiah 11, this peaceful coexistence of creatures. Romans 11 talks about this ultimate fulfillment of God's plan for all nations. And they see this progression where, like a historic pre-mill, when they look at Psalm 72, we'll look at this next time in Isaiah 11 and other passages in Isaiah, they might see this is a weird time where things are going really good. I think Isaiah would say things like, a young man will be 100 years old and no one will die as an infant. And a historic pre-mill might look at that and say, well, that doesn't sound like the eternal state where people are dying when they're 100. But it seems like an in-between time. Or, it seems like maybe this millennial reign where you're like in this weird in-between because are people still dying, And Psalm 72 kind of says some of these same things. So things to think about where different systems place emphases, where they are saying, well, this is where things are going here and now. And so maybe we can look at a sequence, a timeline of events, try to get our bearings. So the church age.
Yeah.
We see.
Where does it start?
Acts 1 through 28. The gospel is spreading from Jerusalem outward.
Your traditional Baptist would go, it starts when he calls the apostles.
There you go. That's it. Yeah. That's a good point. These post-mills would say that, Christians are living faithfully. They're discipling others. They're having this influence on culture. And through this, the kingdom is growing not only spiritually, but also socially and morally. And you're going to see this bleed into education, law and government, culture, media, economics. It's not going to be instant perfection. But gradual, and if you're looking back at America's history, you might be like, this was happening. And that's why most people were post-mills at that time.
Yeah, and it's easy to sit here. I was even thinking back to our previous episode on this topic big, and I was saying, well, there's a lot of things going on. But, if you've looked at J. Warner Wallace's Person of Interest, he goes through how crazy Christianity has transformed the world.
Yeah.
Through education, hospitals, science, the arts, all the things that have been changed because of Christ. And you go, wow, this
good.
Has had a huge impact for the good.
Hospitals, orphanages, technology, all the things. I love the pushback. When I see pushback, people are like, well, it's because everyone was Christians. Or they're like, have you seen this kind of thing? Like, they're like, well, no one was not a Christian.
Well, there were places that everyone wasn't a Christian.
And it wasn't so great.
And they weren't doing those things. So there you go.
So we'll probably talk about this, but, Puritans, Jonathan Edwards, you can imagine you're coming to, you're in this new world and you're like, wow, we have like our religion, like everything, we're building everything up. This is kind of a golden age where you would start to see some of that a little bit. And really in their version of a golden age would be the virtually all nations experiencing significant gospel influence. This peace, this justice, godliness are flourishing. Death and sin are not absent, still presence, but restrained through Christ's reign. And this really is preparation for Christ's visible return. And then after this, we're getting into this golden age. Christ will return, visible, public, glorious, believers resurrected, final judgment to follow. And we have this final judgment, this new heavens and new earth. And so we see it's hopeful, active engagement, not escapism. And you can kind of see the outworkings of it. I think it's easier in a pre-mill context to be escapist. I'm going to withdraw from the world. I don't like the way schools are going. I'm going to homeschool all my kids.
Right.
I don't think that's a bad thing, but it's like, public schools are probably getting worse and worse. The more Christians are like, I'm not going to talk to school boards. I'm going to totally isolate versus like, hey, if you go to a place like Moscow, Idaho, Doug Wilson, post-millennial, like that whole city is like taken on, we're going to transform the city because they are post-mill minded. And it's like everything just looks like different. Like they have like their own coffee shops and it's like they're trying to really take over in that way. Also, Doug Wilson's a big proponent of homeschool stuff. He's trying through like, these classical conversations and homeschool things to really give a good product and change. But you can see the timeline, not that much different from Amill. Really, the emphasis is just on the trajectory is what ushers in Christ's return. It's getting positive.
But there still is a 1,000-year reign of Christ physically, bodily on earth for post-mill, right?
I don't think so. I don't think there's...
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
So it's still a spiritual reign right now? Then Jesus, boom?
And then boom, when Christ returns, it is like believers resurrected, final judgment, new creation, new heavens and new earth, where... I think, and I might have put this, we'll talk about the historical development, but I don't know when this happened, but I think at some point there was no such thing as post-mill and all-mill. Everything was post-mill. There was no all-mill. Yeah. And so it was hard to like tease out a few things. So while you're,
I just want to check
looking up some stuff, that's good. I'll go through some historical development. Really at its high point in the Puritan era, we mentioned Jonathan Edwards believed that widespread spiritual revival would precede Christ's return. And so the Puritans, they often envisioned things like a society that would be in a lockstep with God's law. Moral reform across the nations. The culture would really be in line with these kingdom principles. And so you look at 18th century New England, the literacy, the missions, the law reform, seen as a partial kingdom advance. We mentioned modern Doug Wilson. He's like the big guy there. Kenneth Gentry, and most see, media, education, society, we're transforming all of these things. So what did we find? Let's get some good.
Yeah, I hate this name.
Yeah.
Why would you call yourself post-mill?
It's very similar
if you
to
don't
Amill.
believe in an actual millennial reign.
Yeah.
Y'all got to fix that name. I have a visceral reaction to this.
So it's like Christ comes after the millennium, which is really the golden age, which again is spiritualized because it can't be 1,000 years because we're already in year 2026. So you think about that, and it really does change the way.
On their view, the mill is
right now
the same as Amill.
It's kind of the same. It's just going very positive. We're ushering in a golden age, so we're in it now, or maybe we're going to come into it. It might be a little more hazy when we hit that. So very similar. That's why we were doing these two first, because it's more simple ones. It kind of breaks it down like this. I don't know if we're going to get to it, but they would look at a lot of the parables in Matthew, these kingdom parables. The mustard seed that grows starts small, but becomes the largest. You look at all these parables, and there's this like trajectory, and they would say, well, that's what's happened. The gospel does have effects. So it's very hopeful, very positive. If you take away anything, you think about how God's kingdom reshapes society before Christ returns, kind of leading up, preparing the way for Christ. If you look, we won't go through this a lot, but Amill versus post-mill, often they were lumped together for centuries. If you're looking at the medieval period, there's not like a ton of different readings. So Amill and post-mill claim the same people a lot of times because of that. Really, it wasn't until this Puritan era where they talked about more of this gradual improvement, where it was really post-mill became like its separate thing from Amill. So anyway, something to consider if you're looking back, like why wasn't the early church medieval? There was like no such thing. It was like all kind of lumps together. One thing we won't get into, but if you've heard of theonomy, God's law, a lot of times that's going to be with post-mill because you're reinstating this justice system of God's law. Not all post-millers are theonomists, but if you're a theonomist, you're almost definitely a post-miller, if that makes sense. So anyway, those are some big picture ideas of post-mill. I think if you understand Amill, you kind of get post-mill. You just kind of get the bent of it is positive. And you can step back from the world and you can see, man, the gospel has brought a lot of good things. You can see, well, it seems like maybe in America, maybe in Europe, it's on the decline. But you look at Africa and South America and China, and it's like, man, gospel seems like things are going really well. It's, I mean, spreading in a good way. You look at the numbers, you're like, holy cow. You know, now the Bible's in all these different languages. You can go on the internet and like you can have access. Like, man, this is the Pope. So you can get behind that. Like, you can see that. The flip side is you're like, man, not everything's not all roses and sunshine at the same time.
Yeah. There's debauchery running.
Yeah,
rampant.
really bad stuff. And you don't have to look very far. Look at our home country, and you're like, what's going on? All these things.
Right.
You're like, what's happening? It can be tough. So I guess from a positive standpoint, it's optimistic. Who doesn't like a good story? You know, I guess all of the stories are good if you look the horizon's long enough.
Right.
It's more in you know, optimistic. I think, you know, any of these systems, you can have certain disposition, doesn't change how you act, but this one lends itself to engaging the world a little more because you're like, man, this gospel is going to transform not just spiritually, but convinced on a societal level. Emphasizes, man, we need to be discipling people, the Great Commission. Let's engage with the culture. Weaknesses is it can feel unrealistic in suffering context. It's hard to, you know, tell that person suffering for years and years and years.
You're ushering in the golden age right now in Somalia.
Yeah,
India.
That's tough. You look at wars, pandemics, persecution. You see injustice everywhere. You might say, maybe I'm not so optimistic. You look at some of these texts that talk about, you know, God's glory going everywhere. It doesn't necessarily mean like success monetarily or society or morally right here and now. Maybe it's looking a little bit future. It kind of depends where you want to put things. And, you know, history doesn't always trend upward. It's like up and down, you know, Europe, America on a high point now, not anymore. Things kind of, you know, shift and go. So anyway, I've got a little bit on here in theonomy, but that's like a whole. That's just like a whole.
I saw that section. I was scrolling through.
It's just a whole. I don't have a good feeling or a good handle on it because I feel like everyone interprets theonomy differently. Like if you just mean God's law, that's very vague. But some people are like, man, let's get Leviticus out. We're doing this. You know what I mean?
Even if I was a theonomist, I wouldn't turn to Leviticus. I mean, that was...
Yeah, and I might be misspeaking for them where they would, you know, I don't know. It's...
Better have a rail around your roof.
Yeah, all the things you're supposed to do and how much is like, you know, well, that's that outworking of that civil law will look different in our context, but there are the outworkings that... And I don't there's all this disagreement on it that I kind of get lost in how to understand it totally. But it's a good, you know, exercise in, you know, the Christians, how much do you get involved in politics and these kind of things. And I'm always fascinated with this conversation of engaging culture / withdrawing from culture.
No.
Because I see good arguments on both sides. And I do think, man, public school, as a general rule, not everywhere, but it's like, man, obviously not a good decision for my family. On the flip side, it would be cool if, I don't know how many Christians are in America that are strong Christians, if it's like, man, we inject X amount of $1 million people into a public school system. Can you change that? Can you not? Or it's like, man, the government is too powerful. We should give up and run away or that kind of thing, you know? And so I think those are good. I don't think you should sacrifice your children.
Yeah. I wouldn't phrase it like you said. Give up and run away.
I think that's how
fighting the battle
might
a different way. Fighting the battle smart, because I don't think children were ever meant to be the front runners of the missions, right?
No, I agree. And maybe I'm getting more at, I think the likelihood of you being on a school board in the public school probably goes down because you're probably investing in the private schools. But not a bad thing. Private schools do good. But you can see probably you get less involvement in government kind of things by Christians by virtue of that. I think as a general rule, probably. Because maybe energies are focused in other places, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
It's like you got God's school and Satan's school. I'm going to invest in God's school.
Right. And it's like Satan's school, do what you want. We'll kind of stand by the side and maybe we'll put a post up or something, but we're not actively like going to the school board meetings and those kind of things. Yeah. Which is let them do their thing. We'll kind of step back into like our circle and I
disagree. pulling my kids out of public school has nothing to do with how I interact with other adults and extending the circle of Christianity. So there's lots of other realms other than education, and
That is true.
There are, so.
And I'm playing devil's advocate because part of it is Christian schools were essentially, at least in America, a lot of them started 60s, 70s, 80s, to say, hey, I don't want my kid to go to school with black people, so we're going to start a Christian school because we think. And so you get into these things, you're like, man, was that the right thing to do for Christians, or did we miss the boat? And that's just one specific example. Right. But I am being devil's advocate where it's like we kind of lost that, or we kind of are looked not in good light from that kind of stuff. And it's like, these decisions of escapism. Right. I don't think they're necessarily bad. I think it is good to withdraw and escape sometimes, but those are the kind of things as like, that a good motivating factor to start your Christian school.
Yeah. Well, I mean, regardless of how they got started.
Yeah. And that's not every school. That's like, I think specifically that is like North Side. I'm not saying that's like Northwood, but I think that was a big movement is like, oh, we've got to segregate. Well, we're going to start our own school where black people can't go to school here. Or, and I know that they're not like that now.
Sure.
I think they would renounce all of that. But I'm just saying that.
We have a healthy mix of races at Northwood.
That's great. No, I think there has been like repentance from these schools. But it's like just the origins. I think that's where a lot of that kind of.
Are you happy your kids are out of private schools? It doesn't sound like it.
I am. But I do.
You feel burdened? You're kind of pulled that you're maybe in the wrong spot, or?
No, I don't like escapism as a general. I like, and maybe it's like a losing battle, like we don't need to fight, but I kind of like engaging a little bit in that kind of stuff. And I'm not a post-mill person, but I do think the gospel is powerful in that sense.
Sending my kids to a public school as letting them be held hostage by the enemy for 8 hours a day for 5 days a week, 180 days a year.
No, I don't disagree. My kids are not in public school, but you have to think.
I mean, we talk to our kids like, hey, at Northwood, not everyone is a believer.
No, that's
so
very
you
true.
got to pick your friend groups well. So it's not like they're in this monastery closed up against the world. They are, Northwood is we'll let really basically anyone come in as long as you can behave right and you have basically good academics. So it's not like this cloistered, we're away from the world. So I would say a lot of the charges that, just don't, just fall flat to me. Like,
And it's just like a thought experiment of if these kids in these private Christian schools and you invested the resources and time, is it like you engage your community, or is it like, man, community's like too far gone? Because I think if you went back in time 50 years, you might say public schools are okay. Would you disagree with that?
I thought my public school, I don't have to go back 50 years. I could go back, less than that. But I was also in rural Arkansas where a lot of the teachers and the school board were all Christians because we were in the Bible Belt.
That's right. And then,
that school today is not that way.
That's right. Probably most of the Christians are in the Christian school. It's like a pulled out or kind of thing.
Not there.
Oh, right. Yeah. So
it's
more Christians public school, more secular in the private schools.
No, I'm saying where in my hometown, everything has become secularized.
Everything. Okay, gotcha.
So it's just like the amount of Christians in general across society has gone down. And so, I mean, there are still a lot of Christians who go to that public school.
Yeah.
The closest private school is a Church of Christ school, like 13 miles away. And most people do not send their kids there. Some have.
Oh, gotcha.
But most don't because of the concerns about Church of Christ, which we did not cover in our cults.
Hey, there's always time. Always time. And so anyway, when you're looking at these systems, it just shows not that everything's a one-size-fits-all, but different maybe ways that you would engage. Like if you go back to the Puritans, they'll be like, man, we're starting all these schools and we're starting to, it's like you're doing all these things. I'm not saying that stuff is not
Those
done
are
now,
private
but it's Jonathan Edwards, known for the private schools. Where in pre-mill, and this is not a general, I think the consensus is for a lot of pre-mill,
colloquial schools.
It's getting everything
schools
is getting
taught religion.
There you go. That things are getting so bad that it's like, man, you gotta kind of protect yourself and isolate. And it's like, these kind of things. I think there's different spheres where it makes sense or not. You got to make those judgment calls on, what is okay for you and your family and where you push And where, because I think a lot of people be like, man, politics are like a lost cause. Let's not engage. And other people are like, no, we need to engage and let's work at that kind of thing. And I think people have different viewpoints on that.
Yeah, I will say this. If you're concerned about the public school, private school split, and you're an adult, go teach in a public school.
It's great. I think that's good.
Jonathan's wife does that.
Yeah,
Katie
my wife did
Blatchford,
for a
who
long
used to
time.
come
It's
to our
like,
church, does that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Christians who can have a positive influence on kids there. And like you said, I'm teaching one class a day.
Yeah.
I'm coaching. I sponsor stuff at a private school because that's where my kids are. But I don't see that as, I don't know. There's a lot of non-believers there that I get to interact with and influence and share the gospel with. So
that's good.
Yeah.
No, I think it's good. I think it's good the more we have believers and all of these different things. I think that's the really important part. I think I know talking to Lane when she was a public school teacher, it's like, man, it's just like no one knows like their right hand from their left a lot of times. You know what I mean? Where it's like, man, she only taught there for 6 or 7 years or something like that, and just felt like she had a very dramatic impact on like many kids and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Post-mill. Anything else you want to say?
Yeah, I was. You reading all this, and I was thinking of this passage.
Go for it.
This is from Nehemiah. It says this is at the last chapter. It says,
Great.
In those days, I also saw the Jews had married women from Ashdod, Ammon, and Moab. As for their children, half spoke the language of Ashdod, and none of them was able to speak the language of Judah, but the language of his own people. So I contended with them, and I cursed them, and I struck some of them, and pulled out their hair, and made them swear by God, you shall not give your daughters to their sons, nor take of their daughters for your sons for yourselves.
Yeah. Cool.
And probably you're like, how does that fit in? But if you recall our series,
I loved it.
There was like this lot of this hope. Oh man, we've gone into captivity. We're coming out of captivity. We have a chance to do this right. And we're going to set it up. Zerubbabel taught the people. Who's the guy before Ezra came over and was a priest. Nehemiah helped build the wall, and they're there not too long ago, and they mess it up.
Yep. Every single time it's like, man, they had everything.
Yeah.
And it's because there was, Christ was absent,
That's right.
And it's like that's what you need.
So I just don't have faith that
I know
even the church.
Yeah.
Empowered by Christ, because these were arguably Christ people.
Yeah.
Christ had not come in the fullness, but he still hasn't come in the fullness. I just don't have faith that the church is going to be able to do it, because I think we're going to always go, you know what?
Yeah.
We long for Christ's return.
Totally.
We are not getting it.
Yep. I could not agree more. That's postmillennialism in a nutshell. Next, we'll start hitting on the pre-mill side of things. Do we transition to the final take?
That's it. Yeah. Kind of already had our final take. We're talking about private school.
It's great. It's great.
I
know the battle is like, we're past the point where it's like over anyway, but it's, I'm trying to think of what other areas where it's like, just a mass exodus where you retreat, which is fine.
Using the word retreat.
What?
You don't
think it's retreat? Yeah. I know. I'm being like provocative with how I'm saying it.
Yeah.
It's also like, it's great. Mars Hill, former pastor Mark Driscoll, for like their men's conferences, would never call them a retreat because men don't retreat. It was a men, like, I don't know what he called it, but it was like, we don't use the word retreat. We're on the offense.
This is a men's advance.
Yeah. Maybe they said something. It's like funny. Like it was like intentional because we don't retreat.
That's right.
But it's one of those things. It's like, I am very pessimistic, and I think, don't have a lot of faith in the United States government as a whole, where it's like, I don't know what you do from a global perspective. And maybe nothing. I mean, in my mind, it's like part of me like believes in America's ideals, where it's like, man, if enough people voice their opinion, and it's like there's people in a community that can. But I don't think it really would change anything. You know what I mean? Because I don't think people have that mindset really anymore. You know what I mean? It's like a lost cause. I think we're past that point.
I see adults ranging from 20 up to 60, and I'm like, they need a spanking. They just literally need some
my goodness.
physical punishment to help and wake them up. And I'm like, if I were a dictator, I might install some physical punishment because it's just craziness.
It's like mayhem.
Yeah.
Like it's like culture is so insane.
I'm sure it's like 10% that looks like it's 95%.
Yeah, right. That's probably true.
But I just like, man, you're so invested in everything that's evil.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. my
And
goodness.
anything that's good, you berate as though it's evil.
It is, and it's like, are we looking at the same thing?
Yeah, it's so crazy. Like the comment on the short that Jill had about obedience.
Oh my goodness, that was out of control.
Like teaching a child to obey. Well, that's grooming. I'm like, no, it's the opposite of grooming. I'm not saying that there aren't Christian kids who are abused and stuff, but like the stories of foster care kids who have no, base, no foundation, no teaching, no loving parents. Those are like the most at risk. It's the kids that are unstable.
And the comment too was like weird. It was like grooming, but then they were like, well, maybe that's the point or something that. Like even like more, you're like,
right.
Yeah, you're missing the overarching point of that short where, you look at that, you're like, man, it does look bleak from that. It's very, United States of America, very conflicting place right now. You know what I mean? Where it's like, whew, it is tough.
I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe Postmill's right, but I think United States is in for some tough times.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to wake people up.
I know, man.
Yeah.
It is what's South America, Africa.
Yeah.
We'll see if I always look at the numbers and I'm always like, I need to dive into more, but it's like blown away. I don't know what categorizes everything as Christian or not, or how wide a swath they're working with or whatever, but the numbers are, and it's really my experience too, like even with like coworkers and that kind of thing, it's a pretty big age divide where the younger you get, people are like quote unquote like more open-minded, but in a much more negative way. You know what I mean? Where even if I'm talking to someone who works with us who's 60 years old, even if like they don't believe what I believe, it's just like the mindset's different. It's not. It's like they
You're
could
saying
call
older
good.
people are more open-minded.
Yeah, I would
think
say
there's this. I think it like alternates generations because there is a swath of older people I see on these videos all the time who are just
crazy,
lost their mind. And then there's some young people that seem like they're fairly open-minded and can discuss stuff. And maybe, if you are a believer and you're listening, raise a large, healthy family. Teach them God's ways at the door, on the road, in the morning, at night,
sounds
at
familiar.
meals.
Yeah.
That evangelize through population growth.
Honestly, it's like
for Muslims.
Honestly, working really well for them. I think, people looking for God's will, it's like as simple as that. Start a family, and I think most things will fall into place.
Yeah.
Get married, have children, you're going to have responsibility, and discipleship, and it's like, wow, that's that I think really organizes and shapes what you probably should do with your life for maybe not for everyone, but for a lot of people. That it's like people like don't want to get married because they want to put off, they don't want children because they're inconvenient. It's like, and all they are added responsibility, added cost, but it's like, man, that's good, and that is part of what shapes you and changes you and makes you less selfish and rely on God and all these good things. Where again, this would be such a good case study looking at feminism from our guy,
right.
Where it's like, I don't think it's bad for women to work. My wife works, your wife works,
right?
But as
your
a
wife
culture,
was home for a while.
My
wife was home for a long while.
I think there's so much positive in that, and I think women can work. It's great, but it does get topsy turvy when the whole culture. It's like not one-offs. It's like the whole shift is like your both spouses work so they can send their kids to date, so they can pay someone to like clean their house and cook their. It's just like weird. I mean, it's not weird. I know those things are people need that sometimes, but it is like interesting, all of these like downstream effects and how feminism, even if certain things aren't wrong, just I feel like everything together just does shape your society into something a little bit different.
Yeah, and it's not exactly the same because I think there is merit in like working out. But I worked with a guy who was like, I would never go to a gym, but I split all my own wood. I garden.
Oh,
he's like,
yeah.
He's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm in shape because
Yeah.
I'm doing the work that our bodies were meant to do. I don't go lift weights. I don't go run. I don't do all those other things. I just work,
Yeah, it is so interesting. Yeah. Going back to feminism, this is a broader conversation than that, but it's like Industrial Revolution wasn't that long ago where the man goes off to work for 10 hours, doesn't see his family all day. That's like not how things necessarily
Right.
were. Like it's even like that is different than how it was.
Right, because
Your kids were working with
pre-Industrial
you.
Revolution, you had some type of family business.
Yeah, yes,
You were working
yes.
together as a family.
And there's some discipleship in it's like
Yeah.
the kids are working at a young age,
had
you're
a
teaching
trade.
them. Yeah.
You teach them how to make barrels, how to make shoes, how to thatch a roof, how to, all those things. We don't do that anymore.
And so, because you think like, oh, the man should do this, but it's like, yeah, even some of that is constructed in a different way than what it was. Not saying that's
And women can work. Oh,
yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. And if you're on the farm or if you're work, yeah, exactly. It's like it's just a different. It's more like cohesion.
Yeah.
For your
Yeah.
family, where you have oversight and discipleship and all these good things that we
And
just
then you can
lose.
make decisions that are right for your nuclear family. Because, what's right for one couple,
Yeah.
how they're going to divvy up the labor isn't necessarily
Yeah,
right
that's
for
right.
another couple, but they're all working together to accomplish a common familial goal.
Yeah, there's something to that it's like we've lost, and it's just part of it. And it is tough because it is tough when dad's gone all day and even a mom is staying home. It's like been with the kids. There's like that's not perfect either.
Right.
It's like there are
Even if you own your own business, though, like I think of Jay Miller, the cabinet company. He's still going off to work at his own business. It's hard to have that
You have to really,
home-based
like-
family business these days.
yeah.
If you got one of those that's working, let us know.
Yeah, we'll support you maybe. Well, yeah, there you go. You can tell us the tricks of the trade. But good stuff.
I know.
Anything else you got?
It seemed like there was something silly I was going to say that I
Nice.
held off, but I forgot it. So that's how good, by exercising self-control. It was something with
Nice.
the Moscow,
Nice.
Idaho family compound
Yeah,
stuff.
I need to look up more into this because I don't know a ton about Doug
Doug
Wilson. But every
Wilson,
now and then
right?
he's on the news and he's like saying, and they have like their, they don't totally like dominate that city, but they're ingrained a lot. And a lot of these theonomist movements, it's like they'll try to get 20 families together and go live in some rural town, and you own all the land, and you try to start building up, and it's like, I'll use you for your cow. It's like you
Right.
try to be synergistic in that way, and it's like you can have your community, and your community church is like a
Right.
fixture in the community because it's like a small rural town. You can have an impact that way
Yeah.
versus like a big city, and you can like maybe give to that community and those kind of things, and all of this stuff. So I think there's good things in that kind of, not saying that's like the only way to go, but it's interesting, with some of this stuff making its way and this reaction against, all these things. And they're in this small town. Now they have 20 families. Now, pastor of the church or whoever's going to run for office because they got 20, it's like, and you can kind of maybe change this county in Kentucky or whatever it is,
Yeah.
Probably doesn't work everywhere. Land's expensive, hard to uproot
And
your
you
life.
can see you get the wrong people in leadership.
Oh boy,
It can go south.
Then it is, people
Yeah.
see an opportunity to like, I can control these people,
Yeah. You're right back at the end of Nehemiah.
And we're right back there, very true.
I can't. I guess I was thinking about it. I was like, why have I always thought that postmillennials thought that we? I guess they do think the millennial reign is right now, just like
It's right now too, yeah.
It's just like because I always thought that they believed that things got so great and then there was a millennial reign, but I guess that's not what they're saying.
Yeah, post mills, man, get it together.
Yeah.
Pre-mill next time.
Pre-mill, Dispy pre-mill.
If we're ready for it, we'll be good to go. We'll do one of the pre-mills next time.
Oh. I mean, is there that big of a difference?
Oh, huge difference.
Huge difference.
Way different.
Got to tune in to see what the difference is.
Yeah, there's a teaser. That's our take. Thanks for listening to Take Two. Find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube for those who want to watch our videocast.